Welcome to King County Connects, a program that connects you with the regional issues facing us and the sometimes difficult decisions that must be made on your behalf by the County Council and other elected leaders. I'm Kimberly Hill. The County Council has approved the 2012 budget, totaling just over $5.3 billion. What will it mean for criminal justice and other critical regional services? To answer those questions and more, we have the Council's budget leadership team. Council members Kathy Lambert, Julia Patterson, and Joe McDermott. Thanks so much for being with us today, and congratulations on the budget. I know it's kind of like finishing a term paper for you guys, or more than that every year. And actually, the budget this year, as opposed to the last few years where we've had to cut millions of dollars from the general fund, it's still a tough economy, yet this budget contains no cuts in the general services. How did you do that?
Well, I think the main reason why we were able to do that is because of the proactive steps that we've taken over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years in King County. We've made about $233 million in cuts from the county's general fund over the course of the last 4 years. And also our county bargaining units, our employees gave up their cost of living increases. And so because of those sacrifices that we've already made, the budget this year was pretty much status quo. But that doesn't mean that we will not have major challenges to deal with next year and the years to come.
This is kind of a new reality for everybody in a lot of small governments where it's just dwindling revenues. So knowing that that's down the road, how do you prioritize? How do you get ready for that?
That's a very, very good question, and it's a very difficult question to answer, primarily because of the fact that the state legislature will be meeting next month in a special session. I understand that they are looking at a $2 billion cut to the state budget, which will potentially have profound impacts on our county government. And so when you ask, how do you prioritize next year, how will we prioritize, it is absolutely dependent upon what the state legislature does. If they make cuts that impact public health in a profound way so that people do not have access to basic care, then that may be a priority. If they make cuts to our criminal justice system in a way that results in criminals being let out of jail without probation services, then that may be a priority. We don't know what Olympia is going to do, and that is the big unknown for this county government.
Is there a possibility that you, like the state, would have to come back and amend this particular budget?
I think that's possible.
It is possible.
Certainly is, depending on what the state does to address its budget gap. It could have dramatic effects that we have no way to anticipate right now. For instance, earlier this year, the state made dramatic cuts to the maternity support services, and it's possible they would consider eliminating that. Doing so would impact, because of how we deliver those services, would impact our public health clinics, 10 clinics that the county runs around the county. And that's basic health care, primary health care for low-income people around King County. And closing those would have dramatic effect, and I think we'd be back talking about what our options would be at that point in time.
If they closed another wing in Western State Hospital, then the people that are there that are mentally ill would be out on the streets again, and many of those show up in the King County Jail. The King County Jail is the second largest mental institution in the state of Washington, and that is not fair to those people, and it is not fair to the citizens of King County, that the people who need help with mental services and should be in Western State Hospital are sitting in King County Jail.
Yes.
So you had talked about that we are in this more favorable position because we've looked at efficiencies over the last couple of years and cut a lot. How are you doing that? The executive's reform plan is to find 3% efficiencies every year. What does that mean? Does that mean cutting each department 3% a year, or what exactly? How do you do that?
Well, we do it in a lot of different ways. The executive has brought in the lean process, which is how Boeing and Toyota looked at how to do their work more efficiently. We have implemented that system in King County, and we are seeing the beginnings of some progress in that. So we're looking at more efficiencies in how we do it. We're bringing in more technology and looking at how we can use technology more efficiently. And I think all the ideas, our employees have been fabulous. Our employees have given us ideas on how to be more efficient. So we're all working as a team to try to look at how we deliver services. Our water and our DDES, Department of Land, is looking at doing things on flat rates, and so that people will have more certainty. And so people won't need to be coming back to ask, what does this cost and what is going to happen next, because they'll get that right up front. So we're looking at better customer service and using technology and a lot of different ways of doing things. And so it's exciting to see how we are improving government services.
Can government really run like business? Is it apples and oranges?
I think we can use business principles, but we can't, as a government, say we are not going to use that customer. So we can't say to somebody that shows up at the King County Jail, you're an expensive customer, or we don't like how you do business with us, so we'd like you to go elsewhere. So there are some business principles that we can use, and we do use, but we can't, because we have to take the people who show up on our door. And that's the difference between a business and a government, that we take whomever shows up.
So you're kind of finding the road as you go in terms of being creative and finding efficiencies.
Indeed, we've done so with great success. One of the places we've piloted the lean program is in licensing. Mm-hmm. And people have always, well, for some time now, have been able to renew their vehicle tabs online, mm-hmm. but we've cut the amount of time it takes to mail that tab out to them in more than half. By going through a process about really what steps takes place in licensing from the time you hit click until it shows up in your mailbox. And we realized there were inefficiencies in that were largely the way we'd always done it. And by actually going through and really examining all the steps and asking why do we do it that way, eliminated over half the time it takes to turn it around. So that's the kind of process lean is. It's not about elimination of services, it's about efficiencies and allowing us to do provide the same services with less resources.
And you know what they say about necessity being the mother of invention. There was nothing that we could do about the amount of revenue that was coming into King County for our budget. So it was necessary for us to find a different way of providing these services. In a way, it is the silver lining to the recession. It forced us in many ways to rethink how we were providing our services to our constituents. And in many instances, we came up with new ways of doing things that are much more efficient and also results in us being able to provide more services.
And I'm sure technology plays a big role too, because you can automate a lot of things like court records and things like that.
Well, we have automated the court records now, and we are also doing e-filing, and we will hopefully next year be expanding the e-filing system to our district courts. But one of the things people forget is that all the records that are now online, we don't have to keep the hard copies. And so we literally have rooms that we no longer have to pay the overhead for because they're empty. So we've been able to repurpose those, and we've actually been able to close some buildings because we don't have to keep the storage anymore. So that's been a very good byproduct of being able to be more efficient. This year we'll be implementing the ABT system, which is a new computer system all across the county, and it goes live January the 1st. That system will enable us to have new business processes that we all had to subscribe to be more efficient in doing it the same way, and it will be a huge saver for us to have this new system come online. It's been about a 7-year process, so we're very excited that we are at this point.
Well, let's talk about some of the other things that are impacted by this budget. The budget redirects the County Road Services Division. Why do this, and how will this impact people who use county roads?
The Road Services Division really has a fiscal issue, and that is as more pieces of the county have incorporated, the amount of money to maintain our rural roads has decreased at a far faster rate than the amount of roads that have been incorporated. So we really worked hard after we received the executive's budget, really working with the executive branch to make sure that we were increasing the span of control, the number of employees per manager, and increasing that by at least a factor of 2. And that gets more money into direct services and roads, helping to maintain the existing roads and getting us leading on that issue.
So when it snows, the roads will be cleared?
More roads will be cleared. I can't say all of them, but more roads will be cleared under the current budget than as we were originally received as a council.
We were very specific about that point because many of us have rural roads, and we wanted to make sure that they were safe during the snowstorms.
Especially in a double dip La Nina
Yes,
environment.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the budget process. The executive sends over his budget recommendations in September, and then you go through and vet that. How do you do that? How do you go about prioritizing, and how do you get feedback from your constituents?
So it's actually a very scientific process, if you will. We go through the budget line by line based on the department that we are considering, and we look at every single expenditure. We do that through the committee process. We do that publicly on television, and we make our decisions publicly on television about whether or not we agree with the executive's proposal or not. Then this year we had 4 public meetings where we take the budget out and we listen to the people of King County to see what their concerns are. And we listen very carefully to what it is that they are telling us. We bring that information back, we incorporate what we've heard into the final product. Then we work with our colleagues on the King County Council to see to what extent they are in agreement with where we are going. And if they say, yes, you are moving in the right direction, we take a vote. So I guess the main thing I want to say is that the process is very transparent, it's very thorough, and it's very collaborative. The other thing that's been different over the course of the last 2 years is the fact that we are working so well with the executive branch on this budget. The executive and legislative branches are working together. And quite honestly, we are very proud of the fact that we are able to collaborate so well with the executive branch. We think it results in a product for the people of King County that is much better. The other thing is, today we took a vote on the budget that was unanimous. We had 9 members of the King County Council say aye today. And that's really wonderful because you see, we come from every single point on the political spectrum. We have very conservative members of the King County Council all the way across the spectrum far to the left. And when you can have all of those people with diverse political opinions in the end agree to the budget document, the #1 policy document of the county, it shows that a great deal of work and collaboration has taken place. It shows that we are respecting each other's diverse opinions. We are attempting to find a way to move forward that works for us all.
Where do we go from here this year? You have mentioned that the legislature will be meeting later in this year to make more cuts. What are you hearing about revenue forecasts? What does next year look like in addition to that?
Well, we do know that the state legislature is grappling with a $2 billion budget deficit. We have read in the newspaper that that potentially could result in devastating cuts to King County government. It could mean that our public health system, clinic system, will cease to exist. And low-income people in King County, people living in poverty, will have nowhere to go to receive basic medical care other than the emergency room. We've heard that they may be cutting the services that provide treatment to people who are drug and alcohol addicted. Those services may go away in King County, which means ultimately that results in an increase in the number of people in our jail, because addicted people do end up in our jails when they can't get help. We've heard that there's a possibility that parole services for those who have been in jail may be eliminated, which means that people that have been through the criminal justice system convicted of a crime will not have supervision when they get out of jail. That creates a sense of insecurity in King County, and it is not a safe policy to put into place. These are things that we are very much concerned about. They could affect the basic underlying safety net in this county. We will go to Olympia together, all of us, representing every point on that political spectrum from the right to the left, and we will work with our state legislators to try to prevent those cuts from coming to King County. Because quite frankly, if they do make those cuts, there's nowhere for us to go. We would have to incorporate them, and that would hurt.
Well, and we'll certainly be in conversation with legislative leadership about what options we would need with those cuts to be able to try to maintain services on a local level. And even not talking about a special session of the legislature, if we had the luxury of not having that happen, because we didn't have any cuts in this year's general fund and this year's county budget, doesn't mean we won't next year. while careful management and attention to detail has set the county up well this year, we certainly expect that we could have a shortfall between revenues and current expenses, that we'd be making those tough decisions again next year, even without additional cuts coming from the state.
We thought we were going to have to make more cuts this year, but because of our healthy incentive program, our employees were healthier, and because we're our own health insurance, we were able to save a lot of money that we had not anticipated saving. So the very fact that our employees have helped us in many ways, including taking care of themselves, and so that our medical costs have not been as high. So that was one of the main factors why we didn't have to cut as much this year, was because of that. And so we probably will have to make some cuts again next year, but certainly not to the degree that we're afraid the state will put on us. And that is very disconcerting, because we have worked really hard to make sure we've got the balance that Julia was talking about, and making sure that all across the county the basics are covered. And if the legislature comes in and makes cuts that affect not only us, but the cities, and then also all of the counties across the state. We belong to an association where we have talked recently with all the commissioners and council members across the state, and there are several counties that are on the edge of even being able to maintain being counties. So it's very frightening to see this all across the state, and so we will work with our partners all across the state to say these are dangerous cuts. These cannot be done to hurt the people who are the most vulnerable all across.
You see, I believe a real solution in Olympia does not mean that they simply pass the problem on down to the counties and the cities. That's just passing the problem on for someone else to solve. A real solution should come out of Olympia, a way to sustain these services in the long term. If they can't do it, if it's simply a matter of addition and subtraction where they can't do it, then they should assume the responsibility for taking that problem to the people.
Is there any hope on the horizon in terms of like economic recovery and regeneration of revenues? I'm sure that's
That is our hope. That is our regular prayer.
As is everyone.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and we really appreciate all the work that you've done this year on the council and as the budget leadership team.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for King County Connects. If you'd like to contact us or check out our programming schedule here at KCTV, visit us online at kingcounty.gov/KCTV. See you next time.